All right, welcome back to another episode of Travel Ball Talk. I'm your host, Rich Prado, owner of Play in School. Today we're heading back to the Chicagoland area, I think south side of Chicago, to meet with John Guzzo, owner of Prestige Travel Ball. John, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. Thank you for having me.
Well, yeah, this has been a long time coming. You know, I reach out to people. I scour Twitter all day, every day. And, I follow people. I hook on. I connect with people through a lot of times it's the Travel Ball account, which in this case, by the way, at Prestige Ball, Prestige Ball is the organization's Twitter. And if you want to connect with John directly, at John, that's JON_Guzzo, Guzzo. And while we're dropping info, go ahead and go over to prestigetravelball.com is the website. I'm glad I did that. I usually forget. But yeah, we connected a little while back. I said, hey, do you want to come on the pod? He was like, yeah. And we never got to it. And so I'm glad we finally got to it. So before we hit record, I made a statement that I think that the Chicago area is a little bit maybe a sleeping giant, a little bit sort of like under-recognized in baseball. But there's so much baseball going on up there. And then you kind of took that and ran a little bit. So tell the listeners some of the things you were saying about, the Chicago area, the region as a whole.
You brought up about a sleeping giant, and I think it's just a matter of who you're speaking to. I think the college level, they know what's up in the Chicagoland area. We get a lot of SEC schools, Big 12 schools. They come up here and recruit a lot of our athletes, and a lot of that has to do with just pure numbers. It's a heavily populated area. There's great coaches around from not just organizational standpoint. It could be high schools. It could be strength and conditioning coaches, skill development coaches. And, it just becomes a part of what is the changing factor. And they're more blue collar. You have to deal with a lot more adversity of training inside more often than, the southern states. And colleges love that. You're building a different type of character in an athlete. And, I think that's why they head up here. And it's a sleeping giant, like you said, for those colleges to kind of just go and we'll grab one of these guys here, 3 miles down. I bet you the University of Louisville probably has at least 6 recruits in their 2024-25 class right now out of the area.
Out of Chicago.
Out of the Chicagoland area. And that could be, west suburbs, south suburbs. I mean, the talent is unbelievable. And, it's great for the sport. It's great for these colleges. And obviously, it's great for the athletes. Being able to get so much more exposure as opposed to when I played. It just allows for them to, experience a lot of different things.
So I just did a quick Google search, Chicago metro population. And you're talking about, a handful of counties surrounding the city, and we're over 9 million people. Over 9 million people. And you're, I don't know the area as well as you, but this is probably in less than an hour's drive across town. So obviously,
I will say it's a perfect world. Yeah, you're probably getting from the south suburbs up north in an hour. Traffic sucks.
Yeah, maybe not at 5:15, right? But it's
You're right.
We're talking about in not that big a geographic area. There's 9 million people, and so when you're talking about population density, you're talking about, are there that? Is there that? Do they have the highest, the highest ratio of high-end talent? Maybe not. But there's 9 million of them. So, but there's still a lot of them.
There's so much of it. You just play you could play the ratio card. I mean, you got 9 million. I
It's
mean, Jesus,
yeah,
those
but
two
it's
cats.
but you could have it's different than like San Pedro de Macorís in the Dominican Republic where there's almost no population, but they're sending out big leaguers, right? So like that's
Sure.
on one end of the spectrum, and you guys might be the other end of the spectrum, but there's still 9 million people. So there's can you find
Yeah.
ball players? Yeah, there's lots of them. That's pretty
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. So okay, we sort of digressed. I like to start sort of like with learning about you because for listeners at home, this is literally the first time you and I have ever been on a phone call. I know a little bit about your background, but the people listening at home, besides knowing that you run Prestige and you're in the south side of Chicago, they probably don't know much about you. So can you give us a little bit of a background, a little bit of bio, and then catch us up to how you came to be with Prestige?
Yeah, I mean, kind of to put it in a short story. I played Division II baseball at Lewis University, which on the south side of Chicago back in the '80s was a national powerhouse. Early '90s, national powerhouse, national championships. They were extremely well known. I got an opportunity to go play there. I was a pitcher and outfielder, and aspirations of playing professional baseball just like anyone else. And I got done with college. I basically had a cup of coffee with the Gary Railcats. That's how quick it was. And in all honesty, I get away from the game of baseball. I had done it my whole life.
Hey, not to interrupt you, but you keep taking the microphone away from your mouth. Keep trying to keep the microphone by your mouth.
Is that better for you?
Better now, yeah.
Awesome. And when I got let go or whatever the situation was, I had to step away from baseball. It was something I did for my whole life and I worked hard. I could have worked a lot harder, and that's one of the things I love sharing my experiences with these kids of what to do, what not to do. And my buddy stopped me. He's like, "Hey, I'm coaching I think it might have been an 11 or 12-year-old travel team." He's like, "You want to come help?" I said, "Sure, why not? It'll be fun." And it sparked my fire. I'm like, man, I always said I would never coach baseball. And it was going back to a youth age at a travel program. And I'm like, I absolutely love this. And I had to figure out a way to make a living out of it, and be successful because, there's organizations in our area that have been around for 20 plus years. So, I quit my 9-to-5 job.
What was that? What were you doing?
Personal training.
Oh, okay. All right. So similar. You were coaching.
Definitely coaching. And, that's what my degree was in college, and which was sports and exercise science. And I just had to figure a way to do it. And I just posted trials for one team. And fortunately, a player on the team that was accepted, the player's mother and father, they were very well off financially. And they asked me, they're like, why are you doing this? Like, you're 26 years old or something, or whatever I was. And they're like, don't you have better things to do? And I'm like, no, I experienced everything I wanted to. Like, this is what I want to do and build. And they're like, whatever you need, we'll be here to support you. And they kind of became my financial backer to build it to where I'm at in regards to a facility. And, we started from 12 kids, and now we're at over 225 kids.
Yeah, that's cool.
In fairly a short amount of time. And yeah, I got lucky with them helping me financially, whether it was getting, bank loans or, being co-signers, but they're a silent partner, and they believed in what I was trying to do and provide for these kids, especially on the south side here. And here I am. So it's everything in a quick nutshell.
Yeah, I tell you what, it's you can go out on it on your own and kind of like forge your own path, but I'm thinking of that sort of like that idea of like trying to walk through snow, which I know I don't do as much as you probably do up in Chicago, but like when you have somebody up in front of you clearing the way, walking through snow becomes a lot easier, right? As opposed to being the guy who has to like plow through it and get it out of the way. And that's your partners in a lot of ways were like the folks in front of you, like getting that snow out of your way. Because when you're a young guy and it's like your first time doing it, you don't know what you don't know, which is awesome sometimes, but also, sometimes you need, you benefit from a little bit of help.
And that's where, they owned a business and stuff like that. I mean, I never knew how to run a business. I knew nothing. None of it. And being an athlete, I'm hands-on. Like, I'll learn it. I just have to be put through it. I can't read it in a book. I need to experience it. And, I think that's just something where.
And what year was that? What year was that first 12 guys?
Man, probably 2014, 2015, maybe.
Yeah. Not
one of those
terribly
two?
long ago. Yeah. And you went from 12 guys, and now you got that's one team. You got a bunch of teams now. You have a facility. I've seen the photos on the, I'm looking at one photo here of the, on Twitter, like the main photo of the Twitter account. I mean, It's a good looking place. Yeah.
It's outside. It's ideal. It's something where it's very hard to come by a full indoor field, and especially in our location, the further out you get, to the industrial parks that kind of went up, there's bigger places and stuff like that. But I think that's what is attractive to us, or for our program, is we're so close to the families and these schools, and it just makes it more convenient.
Now, you come from the personal training background. I'm assuming that you take the strength and conditioning pretty serious for these guys.
It was something where I enjoyed doing personal training. It was fun, but I got burnt out with it. You can only teach so much, and do it for so long, and it becomes very repetitive. That I stopped doing it. And even with my athletes, I could give them workout programs, general things that I learn or experience and get results. But, just recently, like in the past, 4 years, I started going back to all these types of certifications, because the player development part on that side with, strength and conditioning, and it completely changed from what I had learned in college.
Yeah.
So I had to reteach myself, and that's something that I've become big on, is continuing my education so that I am on the, at least at the forefront as much as I can be for providing these kids with the most updated, knowledge or structure, whether it's player development, skill development. And I think it bodes well for the kids to see it, because they're like, Coach Guzzo is still going to classes and bettering himself with certifications, and, I just have to go to math class.
Right.
So if they see it and what you go through, and they know, Coach Guzzo was not a studious person, they buy into it. You build that relationship, and they build more trust in you. But
yeah, and I mean, one of the most obvious differences between the player of today versus the player of 20 years ago is just how strong they are.
Yeah.
You look at the college player, today's roster compared to, when I was in school, it's not even close. It's crazy how physical kids are right now. So obviously your guys are probably looking around and they see that, and, they crave it, because they know I got to get bigger, faster, stronger. So, are your guys, is there I was just looking at this little video, and I saw there's some, you have some weights, you have a weight room in there. Is that sort of part of y'all's, part of the training cycle in there? It is.
So we have a full Olympic weight room in there. So that's all bumper plates, full dumbbell rack, squat racks, everything you need. Our athletes have 24/7 access to our facility. So we also have another gentleman.
Tell me, start over. How? You got a keyless entry?
Each athlete has their own pin code.
That's awesome.
So, like a lot of our high school athletes at work, I mean, like just last night, we had people in there till like midnight, putting it, doing their own thing, and that was always one of my goals. Is
would no coach, would no like
nope.
employees,
no employees.
And
so it's all.
Was that because I know there's somebody listening right now who's been thinking about this. Okay, so I'm just trying to think. I'm trying to think through it. First of all, did that scare the heck out of you to implement? Like before you
for sure.
like, okay.
Absolutely.
So what scared you and what got you over the hump?
I think it's just setting the ground rules and understanding like there's zero tolerance. You do something stupid, you lose those, privileges.
Yeah, and do the kids say there's a kid that can drive? Okay, so he's gonna come. He has a car. He's gonna come by himself. Or shoot, man, it's Chicago. I'm assuming public transportation is sort of part of the deal. So they get there, however they get there, they punch in. Are these kids predominantly coming with mom and dad, or are they coming solo?
So if you're a high school athlete,
mm-hmm.
you are able to come on your own. If you are,
okay.
14 or under, which is like 8th grade or lower, you have to be with an adult.
You're coming with an adult. Okay,
correct.
next question, because like this has me, this has me a little bit freaked out. Do you have like tons of cameras in there so you can just sort of check behind them? I can imagine like you're sitting at home. It's 11 o'clock at night. You're with your family. You've put the kids to bed. You get, I'm assuming your system says, hey, somebody just went through the door, and then you can go on your phone, pop open the phone, say, oh, cool, that's little Johnny's getting some reps in.
Yep. No, that's exactly how it works. And everything's always locked. There's always there's alarm systems, there's cameras that cover pretty much every square inch of the place. Well, one of the nice things about it is I use it part of remote trading. So if those kids are going in there and, hey, coach, I'm here. Can you check out my swing on the camera?
Are you serious? Great. That's amazing. God, we live in the future. We live in the future, man.
No, it's nerve-wracking. But again, it's, they sign waiver. I mean, they go through the whole process. Like, you understand, like, guys, this is not a free-for-all. And there's trust that you have to put into those people and understand, like, it's an extension of your home. And, again, you kind of get to know the kids and the parents, and, it's worked out great. Things break, and I tell the kids, like, that's normal. Like, just
things break during normal hours too, though. Like, you know what I mean?
Exactly. So I walk, just let me know so I can get it fixed. But yeah, it's one of the big things. A lot of people will say like, oh, I have 24/7 access at my other place. And I'm like, no, you don't. No, you don't. Not to this extent. You may have unlimited access during operational hours, but again, the facility is private to our organization. So
that was going to be my next question. And then, so you beat me to that. But one of the topics that we brought up before we hit record, and I said, just hang on, let's talk about it while we're recording, is your emphasis and priority on group training versus individual lessons. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, so that started with our conversation about, reading books. And I explained, that's not really something I struggle to comprehend a lot of the stuff that I read. But I came into this book, I think it was like Industry Titans or something like that it was called. And it kind of just talked about in the personal training world that, it could just be like an LA Fitness or Planet Fitness where, the one-on-one training is it's a productive model, but it got me thinking outside the box of, well, can we get the same results in a group setting? And that's where, the book kind of lays out, how it could be more beneficial. And, And then I just tied in my personal experience. I'm like, man, that's part of the reason I had to step away from personal training was I trade 10 clients a day for 5 days. Like I'm shot. And I transitioned that into the baseball world. Okay, let me train these athletes in a group session, and it could be a variety of different ages. For instance, I have kids that are 10U, and I have kids that are 18U. When you become good at it, and you have eyes on the back of your head, it's not that challenging. But it just created a lot more possibilities, whether it's freeing up more space at the facility for athletes to use. It created a more financial, a less financial burden on the families. So,
yes.
Instead of paying $500 for 5 hours of lessons, you can pay in a group setting, $400, but now you get 27 hours of lessons, or however you structure it with a group session. And it's, a lot has to do with how are these kids learning nowadays? These kids, mental focus, it becomes strenuous after 20 minutes, and you got to figure out another 40 if you're doing one-on-ones. It's like, how beneficial are those last 40? So
I love it.
You put them in You put them in a group setting. They get to socialize. There's some breaks. It's you're supposed to be having fun when you're doing any kind of sports training. So it becomes more enlightening. It's like, hey, I got a 3-minute break in between working, upper half, lower half separation off the mound. You just start throwing the football around a little bit. It creates such a better environment. The kids learn so much more. It's more cost efficient, and it's better on the instructors. They can work less hours while still providing, quality service.
I've been preaching about this on this podcast for 4+ years, and it makes me so happy that somebody's doing this. And my hope is one coach is hearing this. Maybe they're hearing this idea for the first time or the 100th time. And I'll say for that guy who's on the fence, you don't have to transition your entire business to this. You can still do your one-on-one. You can still do your privates. Do your privates, but open up a window and start with a group of 3 or 4. And if you need me to walk you through the numbers, let's walk through the numbers. It's very simple. Math is easy, okay? Let's use round numbers. The private lesson for an hour, let's just say it used to cost you $100, right? $100 for mom and dad. That's a lot of money.
Sure.
And the instructor, let's just say for clean numbers, the instructor's going to, or the Coach Guzzo in this case, he's going to put $100 in his pocket. Okay, cool. That kid gets an hour of training. Well, let's start with the kid. The kid's not going to you can't swing for an hour straight. It doesn't work.
No.
Right? You can't do it.
I will say, I think that is part of the problem with instructors is you're right. You cannot swing for a full hour, but if you program it right in regards to breaking it up in groups, like you can't, like I said, my specialty is pitching. You can't throw for an hour, but you program it into movement prep, which has become a big term in the skill sports world of, okay, can we do 15 minutes of movement prep? Great. Now it's basically like a warm up to get your body swinging instead of doing your static stretching. So, but not to cut you off there. So, that's what coaches need to understand and educate themselves of, okay, what is a more productive way to get through these lessons if you're doing one-on-ones?
Yeah, but so on the kid side, I love, first of all, you're building in those necessary breaks, right? You're giving the eyes, hands, arm a little break so that you can refocus. So when you are going to throw, you're locked in and more focused. You're building in competition in the small groups, right? You're building in the opportunity for the younger kid to learn from the older kid, or for the less good kid to learn from the better kid, whatever the case may be. And then just do some quick math. Okay, cool. You made $100 an hour. Great. That's great. But what if we had the opportunity to bring a group of 5 kids in that are paying $25 a person? Now we've lowered the price for mom and dad by $75 for the hour.
Yep.
And, well, 25 times 5 is 125. Now we've lowered the price for mom and dad while increasing the revenue for the coach. Right? So, like, again, if you're listening to this, you don't need to turn off everything you're already doing with your privates. We get it. You like your privates. You're comfortable with your privates. But my recommendation and my encouragement is to pick a window. Maybe start with literally 1 hour per week where you can get 5 kids in there. Or you don't like 5, maybe start with 3. Maybe start with 3. If you're used to getting, let's say you're used to getting $70 an hour. Okay, mom and dad are paying you $70 an hour. What if you lowered that to $30 an hour? But you get 3 kids in there. Now you just jumped from $70 an hour or make it $33 an hour. Now you jump from $70 an hour to $99 an hour with just 3 kids, right? So I find it to be a really, really smart way to run the business. And it's shocking to me how many facilities still won't venture into this model.
Yeah, I mean, put it this way. Tying into a few things you just said right there, with the kids learn so much from each other.
Yes.
It's unbelievable. Like, they'll just watch a kid, and they can do it. Where they could watch me, and they'd be like, well, how do you do that, coach? Mm-hmm. And, these kids learn so much from each other. And then when the kid can then be an extension of the coach.
Yes.
That's right there is where you win. Because now, I tell, like, when you can explain it or demonstrate it, or especially when like I said, I got high schoolers with youth kids. They become an extension. They're doing their work, but now they can start to communicate that to a younger athlete, or it could be the same age. Now they're processing it differently.
Yeah, and when you're teaching it, that's when you know it.
You know it, or at least you're starting to understand it more. It's just like the light bulb goes off, and you're just like, there you go. Now, on the other side, anyone could be like, oh, it's just a money grab. And,
no, it's
fair
not.
To say that. Well, in some cases it is. I think that's something that's
the parent. That's what I'm saying. The parent is still nobody's forcing them, but you're still welcome to sign up for that $100 an hour private lesson. Mom and dad, you don't want small groups. I get it. Okay, do the privates. Do the privates all day, every day. That's cool.
That's where if you don't show the results, and it's just like, I mean, you can watch. We have a viewing room. Like, parents, watch. I encourage it. My father used to watch everything I did when he turned me over to different coaches, and then we worked on what he saw us doing, which that's a whole nother topic of parent involvement in kids nowadays. But it's if you're producing results, there's no such thing as a money grab. Or if you are providing what you promised, that is not a money grab. Yeah. And everyone loves to throw that term around. Obviously, in the travel sports world now, it's like, oh, it's a money grab. It's like, I don't think you know what a money grab is.
I know.
But it's just, it works out great for me. I have a lot of requests to work with me. My experience, and that's something else too, where my prices go up, and I explain to my parents, like, that's because I'm continuing my learning. My certifications. I go, it's just like a doctor. I go, so, you want more information, you want more knowledge, like, prices go up. Like, I have other instructors that are younger and less experienced, like, you can go with them. But, and again, I have my one-on-ones where it's like, no, we're just one-on-one. He won't jump into a group, and there's a lot of reasons for it, but it's the biggest thing, and that tied into one of your questions about, I think it was like in regards to like biggest regrets or something like that. You asked me, and it was like my biggest regret was being too narrow-minded at a younger age. Now that I'm older, I mean, I'm stubborn, but I'm not stupid. That's my favorite phrase. I'm your typical Italian, like, but I've learned I'm going to listen to everything you tell me. I'm going to see what can I use. Maybe I use it for later, but you have to think outside the box. You have to open up your eyes and listen to different perspectives or ideas. And, it ties into the whole group training. If you do a team group training as a baseball team, what's the difference?
That's right.
It's not like it's the same thing.
I love it. All right, I'm going to shift gears on you a little bit.
Sure.
Besides running Prestige, you got the travel ball, you got the facility. I'm trying to look. It looks like you got a bunch of teams, so probably 20 teams or whatever. You got the facility going. You also have another job, coaching college baseball. How in the world do you find yourself coaching college baseball? Where are you coaching, and just like how do you do it? I know there's some other guys who are doing it like you, but like how do you make time for this? Where are you coaching? First of all, start with that. Where do you coach?
So I am the pitching coach over at Cal St. Joe's, which is in Northwest Indiana. They play in the CCAC. They're an NAIA school.
Okay. And that's super close. You're in the south side of Chicago, and from there to Northwest Indiana, it's like the next neighborhood over almost, isn't it? That might be an exaggeration, but it's very close.
So my facility's in south side of Chicago. I live in Northwest Indiana now. So I literally go from my house, I go north to college ball, and then I go west towards my facility.
And from your house to the facility, how far?
It's like 30 minutes, 40 minutes.
Nothing. Okay, nothing. It's like going across town. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're across the state line, but you're basically right on the line. And so how did you hook on with them? And how do you even have time for this? Because I know college coaching can be, pretty time consuming.
It is. So this is my third college job. I had one previously when Prestige was in its infancy. I think I had like 3 teams at the time. I had a friend that was coaching college baseball. He reached out to me. I'm like, you know what? Let me get my feet wet. Let me see what it's like. Great. I spent a year there. Prestige took off, and I'm like, crap, I got to step away. So I spent like 2.5 years there. And, Prestige was continuing to grow, and bullpen sports was growing. And I got a call from a Division II school in Northwest Indiana as well. And they're like, we want you here as our pitching coach. So I gave it a whirl, and, due to certain things, I stepped away, but I got a call again at my current location. And they're like, you know what? What do we got to do to get you here? Now, how am I able to do it? I'm going to tell you first and foremost, it's because of my wife. She's very understanding.
She's doing a lot of pickups and drop-offs of the kids. She's doing that.
You know what, though? So she's a nurse. So it does work out. And our schedules just work out great. Baseball is a afternoon baseball or evening setup. I'm Mr. Bomb in the morning. I get them up, I get them ready for school, get them on the bus. But if it wasn't for her and her understanding of it, and I have 3 little kids. I got a 4, a 5, and a 7. So, them too. I mean, it helps having a business where it's like I can bring them there. I could take whatever it may be. But it's just about time management. And I preach this. So time is the most important thing we have. It's more important than money. You only have so much time on this earth. And, so figuring out a way where I'm with the pitchers. So hey, you guys are going to work around my schedule. They train at my facility as well, which helped. And don't get me wrong.
So the college guys come up to the facility?
So like right now we start up, they'll start coming in my shop to do drill work or lift in our weight room through the weightlifting program I give them. So they'll do that throughout the off season.
Now you mentioned bullpen earlier. Is that the name of the facility?
Yeah, so that's the name of my facility. Yeah,
got it.
Bullpen is like it's my umbrella.
Okay, got it.
And so it's one of the perks of being at the school. Those kids can now have access to my facility, and I'm able to kind of keep an eye on them.
Yeah. Well, let me step in the shoes of your wife. Yeah, it all works and time management is great and everything, but it's still hard. So like, why are you doing this? You're crazy. Has she ever said that to you, or is that just me thinking out
Yeah,
loud?
no, all the time, all the time, all the time. You know, she asked me that after my first year of coaching college baseball and Prestige took off, and and I stepped away from college for I think it was like 2 years. When I got that call, she's like, "Well, why do you want to go back now? Like, the business is being successful, And I was spending a lot of hours building that business, just like any other business. I told her, I go, you know what? Like, I love player development. And that's how I look at travel sports. It is player development to get them to the next level. Mm-hmm. And I just said, like, I got that taste, and like, that's where I want to be long term. And she was like, oh, all right. Like, we're going to have to figure out how to do this with 3 kids and a mortgage and business. And there's a lot of sacrifices for sure, but I think it's something where, in college baseball, like you got to put in your hours, you got to grind, and, it's such a small network when it comes to getting a head job and so on and so forth. And, I use it too as a huge recruiting tool for not just the school I'm at, but networking my travel kids to other schools that I have relationships with. But then you build that trust. They know John Guzzo, pitcher coach, CCSJ. Yeah, if he refers a ball player to me, I know what he's talking. He knows what he's talking about. So it creates more validity for my other business. But it's something that, like I said, I wish I got into coaching right out of college. I wish I went as like a GA and did all that, and I didn't. And it was, like I said, I had to step away from baseball. So I'm going the longer route to it, but in the end,
there really is a thing that I see all the time where, man, there's something about the college coaching that just gets its claws in people sometimes, and you'll see a guy who maybe he tries to get away from it, and then he gets pulled right back in. There's just something about that level of coaching that really is attractive to some people, which is cool.
That's where you see like these baseball lifers. But I think with technology, it's made it a lot easier. You're not spending hours going out to watch high school baseball games. And this is where it's great when I coach it. I coach one of our high school level teams that they're extremely talented. When I go to a big time tournament, I'm doing my recruiting there. So you
double dip. Yeah,
it's like,
absolutely.
You build out your list of, hey, there's a place in Indianapolis it's called Grand Park. They run a great tournament over there, and it's just like, okay, like I know my athletes. Hey, you're going to be at Grand Park. Awesome, we're there in the same tournament. I'll hop around. I'll come see you. Boom. You knock it out in one weekend while I'm there coaching, and the recruiting has become so much easier. Obviously, being a head coach is totally different in college. You're dealing with everything else but baseball. But
you're running the business. I think that's more aligned with running the business. You got to focus on so much. You got to focus on fundraising. You got to deal with admissions. You got to deal with alumni. All those things, and you're letting your staff can be insulated from some of those things.
It is, but you're only as good as your staff, and that's
and those guys have to go out and grind on the road, and then when you're in school, they're obviously they focus on the development piece,
correct,
which the head coach does too, but their off the field responsibilities are very, very different. A lot more high level. Well, this has been awesome. I definitely want to ask you one more question as we work towards wrapping up. But this question tends to has a potential to open up a little bit of a discussion here. So we'll see which way it goes. And I like getting the perspective from a guy who's sort of on both sides of the fence. You got your college hat on, you got your travel ball hat on. So the question is, what one change could be made to travel baseball that would have the biggest positive impact?
Oh, man. I don't know. I think you can go a lot of routes with this.
Yeah, let's go. We can go. We can pick a few of them.
Okay, let's start with. I think there needs to be a better way of tournaments kind of leveling the playing field, and what I mean by that is, this is where it gets dicey. So let's for instance say there's a tournament that is invite only, and you have to request an invite and submit all your information. I love it. I think it keeps, the best get to play the best that are that level. Let's roll.
Yeah.
Well, the problem with some of that is these national organizations, which I think they have great motives, they will come in and possibly take over an organization, and they get automatic bids into these invite onlys.
Mm-hmm.
And so then sometimes you have teams that should not be in those.
Right. Because they wear the same logo. They're called the same thing, but they're not necessarily the national team. It's some like local team who's wearing the same uniform. Is that sort of what you're saying?
Right.
Got it. Yeah.
And
I hear that.
And then it goes vice versa of, even with the youth level of, teams that, I guess you call them trophy chasers. Like I always say, there are more B and C level ball players than there are A level.
Yeah, of course.
Like A level, go play A level. B and C like stick together, and I know USSSA does what they can to be more of a governing body, but there's so many ways and loopholes to get around that where. I don't know how.
Let me say the thing that I think you don't want to say. Here's what I think you want to say, and I've said this 100 times on this very podcast. You go to Atlanta, okay? You're going to play in Everybody Loves Perfect Game, okay? And they've done more for amateur baseball than probably any single organization out there. But when you go down there, and you got 300 to 400 teams in one event.
Been there.
You end up with a pool with 7 teams in it, and you got one team that's going to just absolutely boat race the rest of the teams, right? So Here's what they need to do, and I've said this. That 350 or 400 teams in one event, that needs to be broken down into 4 separate events, all playing at the same time. And obviously, everybody wants to be in the A bracket. Nobody wants to be in the D bracket. I'm just thinking out loud, but how many of those C and D bracket teams maybe wouldn't come if they were placed in the D bracket, right? Because Mama would revolt, and maybe Coach would revolt, and now, it's like, maybe would they lose a little revenue if they turned the one big event into 4 concurrently running events? Probably, maybe not. But is that sort of what you were tiptoeing around?
Yeah. I mean,
maybe. Okay.
It gets dirty because let's call it what it is. Those national teams, they're awesome. Those kids are so good, and dude, it's so fun to watch. Like, I love it, and I tell our kids, go watch these guys. Like, you think you're good until you see those guys.
Yeah.
But when it starts to get dirty in regards to, okay, let's say you play, let's just say you're a pitcher. Okay, you pitched on Thursday, thank you, and you leave. Well, you know what they have coming in? They're flying in a kid.
Yeah, like, they're flying. You're flying in the next round of arms.
What are we doing in regards to for these kids? Like, to win that tournament, to have your name on it. Like, it's a hell of an accomplishment. But those kids are already that good. So if I'm paying a plane ticket to fly a kid in, doesn't everyone already know probably who this kid is via PBR and social media? Yeah. So why? I guess is my question. Like, because it's a cool experience. You'd be like, oh, I'm getting flown in. And it's like, now something that would be very interesting, and this is more directed towards the college coach side of me, is, I love the Georgia tournament. I think it's crazy. Like, I think we were down there 2 years ago. There was like 600 teams, and it was awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of bonkers, isn't it?
It is, and it would be kind of cool if you did categorize it and you just say, like, hey, these are our national teams.
Yep.
These are teams where, like, and you got it. Yep. You have to do it. You do request invites to it and stuff like that. But why don't you put them in a group? And then let's say, for instance, like we have very talented kids. They are not SEC caliber ball players, and that's perfectly fine. I tell them, guys, like,
and that's okay. And that's totally okay.
I tell them, like, I need you to peak when you get to college, not before college. Mm-hmm. I go, and then obviously with the whole NCAA transfer portal, like there's so many different avenues you can go with that. But I go, if you took, let's say, the next two groups and you said, hey, a lot of these invites, like, they don't really have any kids that are committed or signed anywhere, which I don't understand how they can do anyway since the new NCAA rules came out. But put them in a group together. And then that's easier for a person like myself,
exactly.
NAIA. I could go to those games. And I don't have to go stand at East Cobb and be like, it's East Cobb Field.
Because at the end of the day, let's look at it from your college perspective, college coach perspective. Does it really do you a bunch of good to go watch a nationally sort of top tier roster filled with ACC and SEC guys versus the local club? Like, it's like, it's like, it doesn't even help you. There's some things you can pull away from it, but what you really want to see is you want to see two evenly matched competitors going against each other, right? Because oh, really? The D3 guy wasn't matching up really well versus this SEC pitcher. Like, really?
Right.
Like, I'm shocked that didn't work out for him. Like, I want to see the D3 guy facing future D3 guys to see how they compete against each other. And
that all ties into, then don't jump in those tournaments and don't do this. And I look at it from both ends of the spectrum. And I'm very careful about the tournaments we put our kids in. If they go into tournaments where I'm like, hey, you know what? You're probably going to get your butts whooped, but you need to see what those kids look like that you're competing against for college opportunities.
Yep.
And it just becomes somewhere, like, I know there's no right or wrong answer, and it's never going to happen. But I think travel baseball is the future. Like, rec ball is gone, and I will never fault. I'm not going to turn away an 11-year-old who, dude, you probably shouldn't be playing travel baseball, but guess what? If you go to rec ball, you're not going to learn anything.
Mm.
So why am I going to kill an 11-year-old kid's dreams? He could turn into something really good, but he needs to be around people with knowledge who can kind of get him to understand. And you're not getting that like you once did in rec ball, and that's perfectly fine. So I know there's the travel baseball broken. You could say bad things, you say great things, but I know there's never going to be one fix. But it would be nice to see if there was a better way to figure out.
I've been saying it for years, and maybe somebody that has way more, way more power and influence and pull than I do. It can become their idea. Like, it doesn't have to be my idea. It's not like this is a super unique idea. It's like, if you have 300 or 400 teams in a tournament, just break it up into 4 separate concurrently running events where you'll end up with 4 separate champions. It's okay. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's okay. So everybody's going to have almost exactly the same experience. The difference is the competition should level out a little bit. And now you're not. You hopefully won't see a team go 0-7 in pool play and get 10 runs 7 times in a row, and vice versa. You won't see the opposite. You're going to see tighter games, more competitive games, and And I think it elevates. I mean, the whole question was like about improving, improving the travel ball world with the biggest positive impact. I sincerely think that this small change has a tremendous positive impact. And listen, if anybody from PG or even PBR, because they run similar big events, guess what? I'm going to give you your get out of jail free card right here. If it doesn't improve the event, then go back to doing it the old way.
Yeah.
Right? People,
right.
This is a thing I try and remind myself of. And I feel like I say this out loud, not for the benefit of anybody listening or for your benefit or for Perfect Games benefit, but for my own benefit, is like almost every decision we make is completely reversible.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Okay, this summer, like make 4 divisions. And if it doesn't work next summer, go back to one big division with 350 teams. That's fine.
Yeah. I mean, it's trial and error, and that's not staying complacent. That's thinking outside the box. And like I said, I think it's something where, I don't just put any teams in a perfect game. Because I want that team to go and compete. Yeah. And I get, like I said, people can easily just say, like, well, don't put your teams in those tournaments. Like, problem solved. It's like, no, you're right.
No.
You can go that route too.
Yeah, you can, but at the same time, I mean, like, the reality is, in this day and age, the trip to Atlanta is the 15, 16, 17-year-old version of 12-year-olds going to Cooperstown. Yes, that's just what it is. It is a rites of passage that, for better or worse, every single family wants to experience. I mean, I personally don't want to spend my summer vacation in Atlanta, Georgia. Like, that's not even in the realm of the conversation for where I want a vacation, but many baseball families apparently do. So that's where we're here.
Well,
No,
you're right.
I've got another call here in a few minutes, and we've been at this for almost an hour. The last thing I want to say is, for those of you Mid-Atlantic, East Coast, longtime college baseball followers, John Guzzo has admitted he doesn't actually know if he's related to Tony Guzzo, the legendary coach from VCU, Old Dominion. He had a cup of coffee at NC State for a while, but we're going to make sure that that this conversation makes its way to Coach Guzzo. I believe he's still helping Finney down at ODU right now as a special assistant, and I grew up, here in Richmond, going to Tony Guzzo camps. So the Guzzo name is held in just the highest regards around here and with me personally. But what we'll do is we'll get a 23andMe kit sent out immediately to John Guzzo so that he can find out if he's a distant cousin of Tony Guzzo, which would not shock me because, like you said, there's not that many Guzzos floating around.
No, there's not.
So, hey, I'm gonna stop the recording. Do you have any sort of final parting words for any coaches, parents, or players who may still be listening?
It's challenging in the world of travel sports. Find the right fit for you. I get you're not always going to be happy with where you're at, but understand, coach's job is to manage a group of ball players, not just one individual. And I think even me having young kids, like, my youngest plays T-ball, and I just stand from the side. I know I may have more experience than some of those coaches, but you got to let the kid go. Like, let them go do something. Let them hear from other people because, it's beyond baseball that these kids are learning. And it's understanding how to work with others, take instruction from someone that is not their parent or guardian. Like, there's so many benefactors to it that I think get lost in regards to, well, I just pay this and my kid should get this. I get it. It's a customer service business for sure. But, I think there's just better ways of having productive conversations and understanding, like, we're all here for the same reason, to help your young athlete or whatever, get to a certain level or experience something, the last thing you want to do is damage it by, acting unprofessional. Talk to coaches. I always tell, I go, open door policy, contact me anytime you want. I love to have good conversations. If you see something, that's the same thing for my coaches, where, I think if you provide that as an organization or a facility, instructor, coach, you're going to have good success, and you're going to build great relations, and you're also going to have a team that's fun. I'm not talking about wins and losses, but just general, they're happy to be there. They like the kids. There's no animosity, and that's one of the biggest killer nowadays, in my mind.
Absolutely. Well, that's a great spot to stop. I appreciate you coming on the call today.
Absolutely.
Yeah, looking forward to getting to know you better. Again, I'll have all this up at playingschool.com/Guzzo. Hang on one more second, Coach.